traders, what's going on? Jamie Setley here, SB Trade Desk, pre-Thanksgiving midweek strategy webinar. And before we get started, please let me know that you can see the screen and that you can hear me. Test, test, test. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? This is a test. Can anybody hear me? Test. Test. Can you guys hear me? Test, test, test. Can anybody hear me? Test, 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 test. Test, test, test. What the? Test. 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 Okay. Test. What about now? Yeah. All right. We got it figured out. I do not know what that was, but my 4-year-old was in here pressing buttons. So I have a feeling that he was the perpetrator, and that's the reason that I had to press some other buttons to get it to work. All right. So how's everyone doing? Heading into Thanksgiving, which obviously U.S. holiday, but rest of the world is business as usual. And I always, when it comes to Thanksgiving, I always think when I first started trading, there were some pretty big Thanksgiving moves in FX. I remember, well, probably not '04, but definitely I remember '06. There was like a huge euro and pound rally, big dollar decline um, on Thanksgiving. It was like it really started the Wednesday night in Asia, so it would be tonight, and it really stretched throughout the rest of that week. So it's like when your early experiences, right? When your early trading experiences, they kind of stick with you. It's always something I remember. Yeah, and Ty says the Fridays are usually very active. Yeah, you tend to get some pretty good movements. A lot of people, that aren't in this business, they say, well, how much really happens, the day after Thanksgiving? I was like, you'd be surprised. It's actually one of the busier days. Um, anyway, so perspective here with this chart of DXY, we ran into big resistance, big reversal last week, and it's same old, same old, same old. We don't, we follow through and then we hold up. I mean, it's just this dreadful, dreadful, slow, painstaking process, whatever's going on. I mean, this to me is just the perfect place to top, right? And it's still, we come in and we go to the short-term chart. Here's a 4-hour chart, and we can look at the channel down here all the way back to the February low. Big spot that we didn't quite get to the upper channel or the 618, right? You're familiar with these charts, of course. You can see that if you look at the parallels within the channel, so you've got the 75 line here and then a line between the median line and the 75 line. For the most part, you can see we're kind of between those a lot, right? And of course, you got the really short-term channel. So just a trend line off of the lows based, back to the September 20th low. And, here we are, came in, tried to break it, right? Early this week, yesterday, actually, evening, and, right back into it. So it is exhausting. Yeah, Marco says exhausting. It is extremely exhausting. Not much that we can do. We can't force the market to do anything, right? But we can try to be disciplined, get into trades with minimal risk and, see if they want to work, frankly. So, that's where we are with euro at this point. Before we look at euro, I actually want to look at the dollar Swedish krona. So here's the dollar Swedish krona. This, we're looking at a fork back to the September 2017 low. All right. And we've talked about this a lot, right? The fact that you have this DXY went to that new high up here. Dollar SEK, right? Swedish krona did not, okay? And you have this divergence or non-confirmation, if you will. And you can see, if I actually go back a little bit to a daily chart, you can see where this line comes from. That is this based on the slope, right? Parallel off of here. We've run into resistance here now since August, okay? And if we go and take a peek then at the 4-hour chart, it's a pretty good looking chart, right? Look at the center line. Look at that support, support, support. And now just recently, as in like, yesterday, we've started to roll over from here. So as you know, I like to look at dollar SEK as kind of a bellwether for the dollar, kind of a leading indicator really for the dollar generally, but specifically European currencies and, specifically euro, right? So let's see, if this does anything. I mean, this to me looks very bearish, all the way back to the non-confirmation, and then, the rolling over right here, right there, right where it should. So we'll see. That's all we can do. All right. Let's move on in. Take a look at here's the euro chart. Right, scroll way back, and you've got, really a beautiful setup, longer term setup down here. Just to give you why the entry was where it was last week. Those old lows, right, from August and from October, we had the big break below, right, and it was game on. You had people coming out of the woodwork to tell you to sell euros. I was watching CNBC. We talked about this last week, and it was the so-called currency experts. Chart. Oh, chart. Ty says move chat. I mean chart. Move the chart up. Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you mean up this way? Like up that way? Okay. All right. Anyway, we've got this beautiful setup, right? Longer term. We had the entry at 1305 because we had a false break below. We came back. So I basically just buying the old support, right? We've had a nice run. Frankly, where we stopped yesterday is in like the middle of absolutely nowhere, as far as I'm concerned. If we were going to stop somewhere, thought it would be more like 1530, which is right here. All right, you've got this little trend line here too. But ultimately, you're looking at a chart here that, frankly, is quite bullish on a longer term basis, right? False breakdown, turn higher off of parallel, off of this good old fashioned neckline. And while 115.30 or so, there's a lot there, right? You've got all these old lows. That's where I think we would probably end up failing a little bit. If we were to, fail initially, that's where, you could get a pullback. Not hard to envision a possibility of maybe a big inverse head and shoulders or something like that. But That's where my focus is on the near term, right? Longer term, we're looking, I mean, longer term, you're looking for kind of a big retracement of this entire drop, right? I don't want to, let's take it one step at a time here, but 1530, and then eventually you're probably talking about these parallels here. So this is within the longer term fork, right? You see these parallels here. This is your basically a 25 line. I've got a different parallel there just to kind of run off these highs and off these lows, but that's where you'd really be looking too. And that's going to be up at this point near the 200-day average. So if we do get a bigger move, towards the end of the year, and seasonals, by the way, we are getting into the bearish dollar, bullish, euro kind of seasonal time of the year here. So pull that up. There's always seasonality, right? But there are stronger and weaker periods of seasonality. End of year seasonality tends to be pretty strong in terms of dollar weakness, right? So we're coming into that. You can see that it's not starting necessarily this week on the longer term stuff. Shorter term, which is the black here, which is 10-year seasonals, actually does turn down after this week. So does 5, no, 10 and 15, sorry. 5 does not, because we've been obviously in a bull market for the most part for 5 years in the dollar, but longer term does, and it's pretty sharp to the downside throughout the rest of the year, okay? So the fact that, maybe the market's just waiting for, I don't know, maybe it's just waiting for seasonality to kick in or something, I don't know. But yeah, these are your levels. This is what I'm looking at in terms of euro. We want to go real short term, and we're looking at hourly chart here. Hopefully we can stay above this low here, okay? Otherwise, we'd probably be looking at maybe even an entry a little lower. 618 is going to be 1314, and that would be an area where we would go back into it if we were stopped out, because I trailed the stop up to 1350, okay? So that is euro for now. Going on and moving on, I actually want to look, we don't look at dollar Swiss a lot because it's just been slower than anything I could think of to describe it for a long time. But let's take a look at it, because I thought it was an interesting kind of false breakdown, if you will, here. All right, so longer term chart, if you go to the longer term page, the long term page, you will see that we've got these kind of, I call it like a meridian line almost, right? The market seemingly has oscillated around this level for so long, big pivots and big moves off of it. And if I go to a daily, it's quite fascinating. This thing goes back like, 40 years, and look where we bottomed yesterday. So maybe that's why the dollar found some support. But the setup here, so you do have this huge inverse, head and shoulders or whatever, which I kind of take a little issue with, because to have a head and shoulders, it's a big reversal pattern, and you haven't really reversed from anything, right? So, we've just been sideways. But either way, you did have a big breakout, and then you failed. So, that said, we're, kind of looking at a big failure. That's it. And if let's go to a short-term chart. It's not clear as day yet, right? And we'll wait for that to happen to get clearer. But you can see that you've got what, maybe a 1, 2, this could be a 3, this could be a 4, and then look for a little drop in 5. And that to me would be a pretty good sign that the dollar's finally turned a bit, or really turned, right? So as it is now, I'm kind of looking for dollar Swiss to roll over too. You've got pretty good resistance up here. I mean, all these lows up here, 99.60s and whatnot, be looking for us to turn down again here in dollar Swiss. So keep an eye on Swiss. So Marco's got a good question. He goes, do you think euro long is clearer than short dollar Swiss? Yeah, I think so. On the longer term chart, I do. I mean, we have that euro chart, right? You've got the big support, that 113 area just is huge. And it's been, it's been critical. That 113, presidential election, that spike levels, 113. You had obviously the October, August lows, 113. The false break below it and then come back above it is a great signal. So yeah, I do. And if we look at, say, Euro Swiss, so here's Euro Swiss, right? And you can see that you've kind of been, we're sitting on what I would kind of call like a big, flirting with a big support shelf. Trend lines drawn from the day after the SNB thing. False break, false break. Look at let's go short term 4-hour chart. You could make the argument, it's choppy as hell, but you could make the argument you've got kind of a 5 up, choppy corrective down drop here. So, I would say Euro Swiss looks okay on the upside, and maybe this also says something about risk in general. Maybe the big breakdown in so-called risk, right, in stocks, maybe we're not there, right? Because if that was the case, you probably wouldn't see patterns like this in Euro Swiss. But again, each market on its own merits. Okay, I'll move on to cable real quick. I really have nothing to add here as far as cable is concerned. There's very little to add, I should say. But I'm not really a fan of messing with this too much right here, given all the Brexit stuff, right? I mean, that's just totally out of our control. Like, you could have a great setup, a great trade, and then something is said about Brexit, and the market goes 200 pips one direction, and if it works out for you, great. But it could go 200 pips in one direction, 200 pips in the other direction right after that. I mean, just not for me. The only thing I can add is the things I've said before, and that's the post-Brexit low here, 2780, 2790. It's been a big level. It's right where we're trading. I mean, it's right where we are, right? Right here. It's right where we are sitting on the opening of the month here, and it is, the month's really coming to a close. Not too long here next week, actually. So, we'll see. The other level I would pay attention to, as I mentioned, I think a bit ago, is 25.89, 125.89. Okay, that is the low back here from June of 2017. And if you got down there, over, say, the rest of this month, you would be on the center line, and there's a little parallel there that comes in, and that would be right here. You also have a square root level at 25.70. So those are just the levels I would pay attention to in cable. In terms of any type of near-term setup, just don't want to mess with it. I did post a chart yesterday. It is a possibility, but again, it's just kind of academic for me at this point, because way too much uncertainty, newsy, stuff. You can't really trust it right here. So possible, 5 up, 3 down. Confidence in it, kind of like 0 at this point. Something I will add if you look at, say, euro pound, all right, so euro pound, you have this consolidation since 2016. You could call this a triangle. A, B, C, D, E. Okay. So you've got 5 waves sideways for 2 years at this point, because 2+ years. And yeah, you could, since Brexit actually, and you could call this a, pretty good looking triangle. And let's zoom in on this part right here. Certainly getting impulsive strength, right? Kind of 1, 2, 3, 5. What's going on here is looking for a little bit of a bigger pullback, preferably back to this 88.25 level. If you got it, it'd be a buy. Again, it's possible that you have a completed triangle that's taken 2 years. Okay, so there is significant upside potential on a breakout with euro pound. So maybe this is another reason just to like euro dollar generally, right? But I would pay attention to that 88.25 level in the event that we did pull back. Okay, dollar yen. Triggered on a short. Market spiked through. I have a feeling we'll know a little bit more about this idea as the day ends, because if we can, the spike up through here, and then if we can drop back below, close the day back below the trend line or the former, lower parallel that was support for so long, then that would give me confidence in the downside here. All right. Until then, it's a very tight stop. I'm okay with that. As mentioned, by the way, the level at which you'd be looking for the next move lower, Ty says, are you short? I am short, Ty. You'd be looking at 111, which is 2 legs down. And this magenta line is you can see it's the half channel extension. So you have your channel here. Really, it's a fork, but whatever, it's forks kind of channel. And when you drop through it, eventually you're looking for a complete, full channel extension, which would be all the way down here. In fact, that actually, interestingly enough, 109 is a 1618 of this, and that would be in line, sometime over here in mid-December. 111 would be in line basically in the middle of next week. So, I'll risk 30 pips all day for the possibility of getting, close to 200 here, right? That's where the focus is, down here on 111. All right, commodity currencies. Kiwi, kind of annoyed with it, frankly. I like Kiwi higher generally. We did have, an okay entry for a short, went in our favor right away, and then, probably should have gone break even on it. At this point, we're sitting in this trade, which is kind of against us a little bit. Might be, looking to get out, back maybe near, 68, 20 or something like that if you pull back some. The longer term Kiwi chart, I do remain quite constructive on this. Here you go. So this is that weekly chart. It's just a beautiful bottom that we had. There's a chart like this on the Amir asking for Euro Kiwi. You got it, my friend. We'll look at it right after this. So this is a chart similar to this is on the long-term page. And, you had just a beautiful, support level here, right? And if we zoom in a little bit, you can see that we are at a pretty big spot here. You've got all these lows really all the way back to December of 2016. So, there's that. There's a spike low here from May of this year. You got the high up here from 68.60 from July. And, a period of sideways here wouldn't be all that surprising, right? Just kind of reset. I mean, you have had a pretty good run. So, if we could get maybe a tight consolidation for a week or something like that, or a week longer, I should say, to me, that would be, set up for additional strength to the upside. And I think really you'd be looking up towards these parallels up here. You can see where those come off of, right? Probably up, it's above 71. So there's still good upside up here, right? Mid 71s at this point if we were to get up and out of here over the next couple of weeks. Chip asking about the futures indices, and of course we will go through that. Aussie similar, still lagging a little bit, it seems. Do like the fact we are trying to hold, I guess. It's been a bit choppy, but at this point, trying to hold against, the old trend line here. So boom, 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 boom. And if I go to a short-term hourly chart, not especially clear, right? You know me, I don't like to force wave counts and all that stuff. But you could make the case that you got 3 down here, right? A, B, C. Let's see what the measurement looks like. And there's not really a relationship there, but whatever. Be looking for support. Whoa, crude. I just looked up and saw it was up 3-something%. What happened? Should we go to crude oil? Anyway, we'll probably be looking for some support. Marco says you're short dollar yen. Yes, I am. We'll probably be looking for some support, 72.50 or something like that in Aussie. Dollar CAD chart from last night, turning off of the level that we've turned off of it, every high since October started, and that's the fork from right here, which is the 75 line. So again, watch for support near about 32.35. Okay, that's the median line and the half channel extension of this one, which was resistance back here on 11.13. Okay. Okay, now to the more important things. I did have, was it Amir actually wanted to look at wanted to look at Euro Kiwi. Probably not saying your name correctly. Let's see. Nice pop in crude. Oops, sorry. It's probably Amr. Am I correct with that? Is that, because I don't like to call people by I don't like to say the wrong name. Is that all right, Amr? Yes, it is. Okay, good. Now I got it. So now I've got it right. I want to say it correctly because My first real name is Gustav, and everyone messes that up too. So I know what you're dealing with. All right, let's look at Euro Kiwi. There was a question there, and then we got to go to the good stuff. Like we got to get macro, and we got to look at crude, and we got to look at indices and gold because there's a lot of interesting things going on there. All right, so here's Euro Kiwi. I like this. We have a nice clean chart, nothing on it. So look, really broadly speaking, like long term since 2012, you do have what could be a gigantic base, okay? I mean, this is a head and shoulders. You've got an upward sloping neckline, right? Some might even call it a diamond because, I mean, you could see how it worked that way. But let's go to the, shorter term chart here. First, I'm going to draw in a channel. We're going to see where these channel lines go. Okay. Hate drawing them off spikes like this. So we'll go off this one right here. And do we have anything, this could be loosely, actually go a little bigger. So, all right, here you go. So this is the concept of symmetry, which is, we've stopped where we've stopped for a reason. All right, so as you know, you have a channel here. We talk about symmetry a lot, and the symmetry means when you go from one side of the median line, you go back through it, you tend to stop or find some support at the same distance, equidistant from where the median line had resistance. So, distance from here to here is the same as the distance from here to here, right? And you can see that this is pretty well, confirmed. I mean, you stopped here a bunch, last November actually, and then you stopped there, September and October. So we pull back sharply. You do have some action on here, okay? September of last year, over here in October of 16. So, there's reason to kind of, maybe look on the upside here in Euro Kiwi. You'd be looking at resistance up here at 72.60. Now, if we go to, this is a daily, if we go to a 60-minute chart, you're kind of forcing it a little bit here, but, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe a truncated fifth wave. And you're on the 618 for the most part. So you also have the daily low right here. So that's taking us from weekly, daily down to hourly. And it's one reason, again, why I'm kind of, constructive here on Euro Kiwi, right? So it's fallen completely out of bed. I mean, you've had an absolute collapse in Euro Kiwi. But yeah, I do like looking at this on the upside. Maybe look at 66.20 if you get it, okay? But we're in the zone, 66.20 to 66.40. Right, that low there today is, close to 66.40. To me, reward to risk here is on the upside. I probably wouldn't be going into this right here. I'd want to see, a nice response, get a nice, this is just an hourly chart, but see if you could get a nice 4-hour maybe reversal bar and maybe have some confirmation that you've put in some sort of a low here, okay? But yes, we have this longer term support, and I do like looking higher in Euro Kiwi. Let's see if we can throw even a short term thing up here. So that's not bad either. You can see the full channel extension there. Interesting. All right. So there's my Euro Kiwi thoughts real quick. Let's go to Amr, my pleasure, my friend. That's what I am here for. Okay, let's go to the futures. Chip, how you doing, buddy? All right, so we're gonna start here with we'll go over here. Let's see. Oh, I had this chart up, by the way. Chip, he was short and nervous. I hear you. I've got some put options on, um, but they're off. Winning on Friday, so they're off to a good start. But if we pull in so here's NASDAQ futures, okay? We can kind of actually draw a newer angle on this at this point, and it's pretty clean. So it's real clean, actually. So you just have a channel right here. Just a regular old channel. That's it. And, we can see that the center line is obviously pretty important. I mean, we were supported on there from the 14th through the 15th. Had a big rip. Your 25 line was resistance, like perfect. 75 line kind of support yesterday. But if you get back up to 66.75 or so, you'd want to see resistance there, okay? But, pay attention too. So like when I have this, I've obviously talked about the possibilities of this crash and all that stuff. Look, we're getting to the point where we're not getting to the point. We are at the point, right, where the pattern runs out. So, if it doesn't happen, we just forget about it and move on. And, like I said yesterday too, it doesn't mean that it has to happen, right? You could go into a period of sideways to down or whatever. We could be not even in that situation, right? We could be trying to bottom. I frankly think that we still have some downside left for several reasons. One is that the NASDAQ at least, we haven't really hit a level that I would like consider a bottom, like looking for a bottom, right? Now that doesn't really matter because the market will do what it wants to do, but I'm still in the camp of sell rallies, okay? And we are getting to that point in the futures, again, call it 66.75, where you probably do need to turn over to keep it, firmer downside. Okay, now if we see the bottom of this channel, remember I talked about 153 in the Qs? That's going to be pretty close to where the bottom of this channel would meet, right? Late this month or, early December. So that's where you would probably want to see, or you'd probably get a bounce, okay? And I love that we have this channel for several reasons. It should really help moving forward, identify possible acceleration points on the downside if we're really going to get it. Because remember, the rule or one of the guidelines of channel analysis, median line analysis, is that once you drop through the channel, right? Once you go through the channel, that's when you accelerate, right? We had a perfect example of that with the New Zealand dollar recently on the upside. It's just the opposite, right? So you had a channel, just a regular old channel like this, right? Market goes through it, comes back to it, and accelerates, right? It's probably more like that. Yeah. So, through it, accelerates. So if we can get that, and then, then we have our, these parallels have been great, right? Right here, actually could see some pullback. So, if we're if bearish and like, as they say, some guys like to say, if you're in the fast phase, right? If you're in the quick downside phase, then you need to probably see some resistance here, and I'd be looking for something like this, right? Maybe get a little bounce, and then if you do come down through here, then this becomes resistance, right? We're just kind of thinking ahead to what a sharper drop could look like. But I will say, Chip, if we get through this level here, 66.75, it weakens the immediate bearish case. All right, we got to be quick to kind of change it up and change our minds, otherwise we get caught in a really bad situation. All right, so those are the futures on the NASDAQ. S&Ps do have a non-confirmation yesterday with the S&Ps and the NASDAQ, right? Because NASDAQ did not break its low, or sorry, NASDAQ did break its October low. Futures in the S&P did not. You are seeing, to this point, we're getting, a bit of a bounce, but you could also take it, you could just as well take it as the NASDAQ leading. I mentioned that a couple notes ago, right? As the NASDAQ leading on the downside, just as it led on the upside. The NASDAQ's been a lot weaker, right? This was after the elections, the midterm elections here in the US. What happened? S&P went all the way back towards this level, right? I mean, hell, the Dow went through that level, took it way out, right? The NASDAQ didn't even really come close. So, you could say that it's the NASDAQ leading on the downside. Either way, it will resolve itself at some point here. Can we draw in that new channel? I'm not sure. I'm sticking with, on the S&P, you probably want to stick with just this huge fork that we have. Yeah, see, it's not really there yet either. It's much cleaner on the NASDAQ. Let's not forget either. I know it's easy to kind of look at one day and you see the market's up 100 points, and the NASDAQ futures are up 100 points. S&P is up 1%. Nice rally, sure, but let's not forget what happened here. The behavior change that happened. Remember, this red parallel is the one that goes really far back, right? Really far back. A lot of times when you come off, you eventually get down to the median line, okay? So you can see all the support, broke it, came back through it, a little chop action, but then what happened? We were resisted at it from the 13th all the way through the 19th, okay? Which of course was Monday. So, this bounce is just that to this point. It's a bounce. The biggest level to watch on that short-term, and the short-term stuff is going to be that the NASDAQ futures, okay? All right, gold. Looking pretty good here. Just, squirting around this median line, kind of doing whatever. I think I wrote a piece on it Sunday. I had a little update on gold. This is that 2008-2015 line, just absolutely crazy how well that thing is held. It's nuts, perfect support. And if things are really bullish on gold, here's your count, right? You got a 1, 2, 1, 2, and you're about to go in a third of third higher. So, that's just a possibility at this point, right? But it's, one that I think bears watching, given what's happened or what has happened with positioning, right? The COT stuff, we got record sentiment on the downside, and record short positions from the specs and longs from the commercials and all that good stuff. So, this is something that bears watching. Again, if we do get a little pullback in gold, I was looking for 12.12 before, probably don't get that at this point. At least I wouldn't think so. I'd want to hold on this line right here, and maybe you look at 12.16, but you might not get a pullback. Okay. Here's a stock that's worth watching too. This is ABX, kind of the best in breed in terms of gold miners are concerned, and beautiful chart on this longer term chart. Okay, how about we look at, do you want to look at crude oil? All right, so crude oil, this is an hourly chart. This is WTI. So we've got this fork all the way back here, hourly chart. Look at the behavior changes. It's quite subtle, but do you see how this lower parallel was support here and support here? And what happened on this latest drop just yesterday? We didn't get to it, okay? We call that a space. Some people call it a gap. I call it a space because gaps are obviously something else anyway. You don't want to confuse people and have the same name for things. So we have a space between this, what was support. That's really the first sign that something else is happening, that you might be trying to turn. And sure enough, here we are. And then look at, this was after the inventories today. We dumped. Here we are. Look where we found support. Okay. We've turned up very sharply, very nicely. And your big test for this is going to be about 56.40 on WTI. Okay. You get through 56.40, and frankly, you've got a pretty good behavior change and reason to, kind of buy dips in crude, right? So you'd be looking for a move higher, maybe come back at some later date and test it as support or something. But that is crude oil. Okay, there was a question from Ty on Euro Yen. So we'll look at Euro Yen real quick. This is Aussie Yen actually, and I would look at Aussie Yen here because remember we've got the big 5 down from 2017. If this is an A, you'd probably be looking for a little more of a pullback and a B wave, maybe back to 80.30 or something like that. And if you get down there, but at the same time you're holding up with stock markets are getting into supports, might be a sign that you want to get out. But 85.80 would be ultimate resistance. So this is a work in progress, probably a B wave here. B waves are the worst, as we know. So I'd be careful in terms of trying to trace on the long side at this point or the short side, because again, B waves could take many, many, many forms, and you could get a flat, you could get all kinds of stuff going on. But wanted to point that out. Euro Yen. This is one that I have very little clarity for some time. We do continue to find support on essentially what's the 25 line, right, of the channel that goes back kind of post-Brexit. And you can see, spikes down through it. I mean, we're trading right on it. It really is a hideous looking chart at this point. Again, euro dollar so much cleaner. Even things like euro kiwi are so much cleaner. Euro pound so much cleaner, right? That's a lot to say that euro pound and euro kiwi are cleaner than euro yen. So Ty, I just don't have a good read here, man. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can really look at here and give a very good idea on. I just don't have it. The only thing I can think of really is that everything from the May low is a triangle, right? Because 3 up, 3 down, 3 up, pretty choppy. I mean, you're just in this huge corrective period. Coiling with no tell. That's right, Ty. And at some point we'll get a tell, right? But at some point we will have, a good tell. I mean, there's many counts you could try to throw in here, right? You could say this is an A, and that we're in a B wave now, and this would be A of B of B, C of B, D of B. So, eventually it'd literally be like this. You'd have up, down to complete a triangle, and then eventually you get a big thrust higher. Okay, so that is a possibility. It's certainly one worth monitoring. And, once it gets closer to completion, we'll look to do something with it. But until then, don't have much of a tell on it. That's a good way to put it. All right. Okay, so I have got to run. Thank you all for your time. Sorry about the earlier audio issues, or lack of audio, I should say. But thank you all very much. And Jeha, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to all out there that celebrate it. And yeah, have a great holiday. I will have an update tonight. Very unlikely that I have one tomorrow, but we'll be online, of course, normally on Friday. Okay. So everyone have a great Thursday, Thanksgiving, what have you, and a great rest of your week. All right. Take care. Thank you.